start heading down to the west side of the project so we can align with stationing, but thank you all for coming. I'm videotaping so people that are not here today can watch it instead of us coming back and doing this again. I thought that was better. We're really excited about the project. As you see, it's well needed. If you look at the average speed out there and you look at how cramped this condition is, let's get going. Katie is going to be serving as a facilitator today. If you have any questions about anything, let's just stop and have a conversation.
So just a little bit of background for people who are just now getting involved in the project. This is for multimodal improvements along River Road. So what we're going to be looking at is pulling the curb line in, doing the lane drop, and we have those shown on the plan sheet. And like Mike said, we're going to start at the 7th Street end and work our way back, which feels a little backwards, but it aligns with the stationing for KYTC. Two or three very big things to think about today. One will be the shoulder condition, whether it's a raised shoulder or just a wide shoulder or gutter pan style, barrier styles, as well as lighting coordination. So those are kind of the big three things that we would like to talk about today, and then any other issues that arise as we walk in, we'll kind of bring those up as well. So let's go on down. We'll start at the 7th Street end. Turn to the second page of your plan set. You'll see typical sections here. Pat, you want a plan set?
I'll share.
You'll share, okay. Does everybody have a plan set who wants one? Good deal. All right. So you can see here we have alternates 1 through 3. Alternate 2 has 2 options. So alternate 2 is showing vehicle barrier either on the traffic side, which is alternate 2B, or on the back side, so replacing this railing back here. That's alternate 2A. You can also see that each alternate shows a different shoulder condition. So we have a raised shoulder condition with a lip curve, and then we also have a wide gutter shoulder. So that shoulder would be concrete, the roadway would be asphalt, the shoulder would be concrete in either option. In your plan set, which this is probably shown best on sheet R5, I printed these in color so we can kind of see some of the differences in options. The blue is where the shoulder is and the lip curve condition or the gutter condition. Green is where the multi-use path is, and you can see very faintly the dotted line that shows this swoopy design in the concrete here, as well as existing columns. Now the orange dotted lines show where the edge of the barrier would be in either alternate 2A or 2B. And since that hasn't been selected yet, it's not very detailed. It's just showing where that edge would be so we can kind of get a feeling for what that feels like, looks like in the plans. Can everybody hear me? I'm trying to holler over this. Okay, good. All right. So that just kind of is a brief overview of what we're looking at on the plans. Another big thing that we want to talk about today is the lighting coordination, and I'm hoping to be able to do that down here where it's a little bit quieter. I know that lighting is going to make a huge impact down here near the Belvedere where it gets very dark. It's really hard for me to yell over top of the traffic. So I'd like to be able to have that conversation here. And I know MKSK has pulled together some lighting options. So if we want to go ahead and have that conversation down here while it's quieter, and then we can start digging into the plans as we move down the corridor, I think that might make the most sense right now.
That's probably a question for Natalie. Did you want to have the lighting discussion now and then like talking about, like, because at the MKSK our lighting folks have like some options. What do you want to do? Is that good? So okay, you can do whatever you want. You want to do lighting now? We can do lighting now.
Sure. Okay. And so we kind of had an initial kickoff with KYTC and getting some of their concerns, which one of the concerns was attaching to the superstructure. So also trying to look at some options that don't attach to the superstructure with clamps, looking at some banding options, looking at some suspended options between columns. Ideally, I'd like to hand it off to you to kind of go over some of those. And that is a separate piece that you should have gotten. Can you hold that up? It should look like this. Some of the lighting options that we've pulled together. So if we can kind of go through some of those and just have that conversation, that would be great. Go.
So the lighting for this stretch here right now currently exists. It's somewhat unsafe and uninviting. So one of the things we wanted to do first and foremost is to create a safer environment, not only for vehicles, but for pedestrians, bicyclists, for whoever's using this strip of road corridor. The question became, well, how were we going to attach this? We know the lights here now currently get flooded, half of them don't work, and they're just not aging in the most aesthetic way. And so how can we begin to design something that could withstand flooding, could withstand kind of the urban conditions, but also create safety? And then while we're doing that, why don't we make a beautiful space out of this area too? Since we're going to be inviting people to come down here, this is going to be an extension of Waterfront Park, connecting to Phase 4, so it's going to be somewhat of a park experience too. So what I did was I compiled a few different examples, and I'll kind of go through this pretty quickly. If there are questions, we can discuss those. These aren't.
There's going to be some things that we can do and cannot do, and they've got to get in here and inspect.
Yeah.
So I think before we go through a lot of options, many of those options may or may not work. I'd rather have them tell us what we can do, what our constraints are, and then we figure out a lighting option that fits those constraints. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So if we'll put you on center stage.
That's fine.
You're on camera too.
Oh, that's fine.
So when you're inspecting, and I heard you when we were at the district office, when you're inspecting this, you get in here and I guess you just have a truck, a lift, man lift, and you look at each of these beams. You said it was fracture critical. Fracture critical means that one of them goes and the whole span comes down. Theoretically, right? So then you all have to get up at each of those joints where all those connections are, and have to physically get up and be above and below those and take an inspection. So what they don't want to see is something that would interfere with them doing that job. Correct? Are you looking at these joints here?
Yes, we actually have active cracks at the crossroads.
You do have cracks in the crossroads.
Which is why some of these were removed at some point. So it was too stiff.
So we cannot be putting anything under each of those areas that would interfere with that inspection.
Not adjacent to the piers, but if we're talking like more towards the center span, you could add it to the bottom angle if you wanted to.
We could add it to the bottom angle toward the center of the span.
Yeah.
With a clamp, somewhat like those.
Yes.
Okay, so for everybody here, where would we be able to put the first one in this span right here?
This second line of crossroads. So not the one that like I'm standing directly underneath, but
Right.
one just to the right of it.
This guy right here.
Yeah.
That's this one right here. Can we put one there as well?
Yeah. So if you remember your statics class and you're doing your moments.
James, I need you here.
So the further you get away from your pier, the better you are.
I'm a Raleigh grad.
So it's, you were mentioning kind of doing this perpendicular. If you were to go kind of parallel, like a condition like this on the L where they use the clamps, could you do that in certain sections? Maybe.
It looks pretty, but
Probably not. You think it would need to kind of stand this way?
yeah,
Okay.
That's your preference.
yeah, yeah.
So lighting.
So, yeah, what we have is, I'm trying to actually, right above us, you can see the bottom flange. There's a transition where it goes from wide to narrow, and there's actually spots where it gets thicker, and there's a weld there, and that weld induces internal stresses, and that's some of the
expect, you go up in a bucket, right? I'm assuming. And then do you just keep that bucket up there and move around, or do you come down and then go up and then come down and go up?
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes?
Yeah.
Because one of the options we were looking at is if we just had independent posts and then had what they call catenary lighting with a cable that would go across and the light would be suspended in the middle. So it wouldn't even be touching the bridge, but if you did have a bucket that was staying up, it might be something you had to duck and go under and then come back up.
We do it all the time.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then.
What else should we do?
If we got members this way, possibly, then we need the spine where the power's coming from. Can we add something to the tri-mark? I guess that's tri-mark, isn't it?
It's fiber optic tri-mark.
I would say you definitely wouldn't want to double the dead load that's up there, but if you add something that's minimal, that would be good. As long as it passes the load rating.
Okay. So we're talking about electric wiring.
For lighting, yeah.
Where's David? What's that? What's the weight of the?
A stick of conduit?
Rigid, I guess.
Yeah, it has to be rigid.
Yeah. Probably 10 pounds a stick.
Wire in it?
Say 12 pounds
Total.
total.
22 pounds a foot.
Well, that's probably heavy on the foot. Maybe less than that. Maybe foot, pound per foot. So about 10 to 12 pounds per 12 foot length. So what do you think? So maybe about a pound per foot. Yeah.
So you might have to add lamps like at mid spacing underneath that. Worst case.
So if we, for example, if we clamped right here, then we would skip, just stay away from this and we can clamp there.
If you stay there, you mean here?
This other joint here. Nothing on that.
Yeah, nothing can
So
go
that
in
would be the
here.
span between those two.
There would be the largest distance between would be.
Mike, what's the distance up? What is that?
The clearance? Do you know the clearance? We don't know.
Not off the top of my head, I'm sorry. I'm sure it's in the archive.
Yeah, but if your point is how far up is it going to be effective still down here?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
that's. I'm just wondering if there's a drop option, like drop coper heads. I remember I haven't gone through that. See, you all are talking about more linear stuff. I just wonder if you could like drop some kind of luminaire. But you got other structural issues if you did that.
Yeah.
Those may be too heavy. It'd have to be smaller LEDs.
No,
that can
I
be
know, I
pointed
get it.
down.
You're just so high up.
Yeah.
I think it drops.
You got that one with the vertical pieces in it?
So y'all haven't vetted any kind of lighting level for this. This is conceptual.
Not yet. No, we just need to know what we can attach
I
to,
got it.
and then we
Start on the right track.
Can y'all slide over? Let them through.
Sorry.
Come on, third.
Sorry about that.
So something like this mic could also be useful. Not that we'd have to do the button lights like a concert, but you could imagine lights pointing up and some down, so you get a good distribution to light the structure too.
I think it'd be good.
I think this is pretty compelling to be able to wash the bridge and just turn it different color.
No, I like it.
And currently the barrier wall is for the columns. It's not for the loop. Right.
But still, from just a safety standpoint, I would feel better if there was something that would prevent vehicles from actually driving the river. The folks at KYTC feel like that would be better. Make sure we have something say, yes, we do not want vehicles going the river. Here's a barrier.
Well, I mean, one thing
I do have a question though about the TL2. Do you need to have? Does that have to be on the end of a sidewalk? Because right now it's at the end of a sidewalk here, or could it be actually closer to the road?
Yeah, I hear you.
Like for the option, the type 2 or the option 2A, the one where the barrier is like right there.
I can look into it, but I don't think the TL2 prevents us from doing that.
Okay, yeah, that
I can
was
double
something
check.
that
I can double check that.
Okay, I was thinking
Well, you brought up too the barrier between this and the users. So let's talk about usability real quick too, because this came up wherever Dirk is.
He just left.
Bah. Okay, he was talking too, if we have mountable curb, which is one of the options here, keeping the barrier out here will prevent people from mounting it and parking along the walkway too.
Interesting.
So that it can take care of multiple things. If we can pick a barrier that is open, that allows for maintenance, plus can serve as kind of that, you know, physical separation between the uses, it might be the best of both worlds.
One benefit of the barrier that's here, you know, it's flat on the sidewalk side, but it's got the standard Jersey rounding on the other side, which of course has from a traffic standpoint,
Right.
accident standpoint. Keeping it on the road as compared to coming over the top.
Right.
Well, and they should be going closer to the actual speed limit, design speed, when we narrow the road. So there's going to be multiple things that is going to, I know, but if we narrow the road, we make them feel a little more cramped, they should be driving closer to the design speed, is the hope. And if you're going 30 miles an hour and you hit a curb, you're going to bounce back in. You don't pop those.
And you know, one benefit of this structure here is it keeps the great bulk of that mud off the road, which would be, you know, we can generally have been able to take care of that from a mud standpoint. Yes, it still does go across the road. Yes, it still does go into the Ali Center's parking garage and cause significant damage there every time it floods. And they don't have the money for that. And then the same thing with the next superstructure. You know, the mud and the flooding gets into there and causes damage and causes them to have to spend money getting the mud off, etc., and the flooding out of it. So there is some sort of a benefit here. Personally, I would like us to solve the flooding problem as much as we can first before we spend a lot of money here making it look nice. Because we've had, what, 4 floods in the last 2 years that we've had to clean up from and then cause damage on these structures. There is an existing storm sewer system taking water, it's designed to take water out, but it's my understanding from MSD and others is that it's packed full of this mud, which is turned almost to concrete. If you put a pumping system, a significant pumping system behind it, and have that running on a constant basis when it's flooding, it may have a tendency to push the water from getting into these structures and causing damage, pushing the water out back into the river, forcing it back into the river. Yes, under high pressure, similar to the pumps that exist at the big walls that you have, pumping system. And then doing something to these structures to keep the water and the mud from getting into them. I hate to see the Ali Center lose money every time it floods because you know they're not making an awful lot of money. And I hate to see them go under.
That's way outside our scope.
I know it is. I know it is.
And I was going to say this, with this being TAP funds, it's this project only, you know, but I agree with you, but at the same time, we don't want to do anything on this project that would exacerbate other things from happening. So to me though, flooding, it's open there, it's open at 3rd Street. The water's going to come here regardless of what we do here. Now it may reduce some silting that occurs up in this area, but the water's coming through. We're not going to stop that water from coming up here. You know, we can only fix what we can fix according to what we've got funds for.
One other thought, getting back to your original question. What if we left this structure in place, but turned this into let's say a walkway on that side and a bikeway on this side of the column?
Well, and then you get into, are users really going to use it that way? I mean, that's what it's set up to be.
Lights, which you seem to plan to want to do anyway,
and that's
which
part
creates a lot of space for the bikes.
It does, to a certain degree.
Does any of this meet federal ADA right now?
Good question. No, the cross slope does not.
So I think what Brian's talking about is moot. It doesn't meet ADA currently. That's the value coming out here.
It doesn't even meet a preferred use path either.
No.
That's what I'm saying.
When you get down through there, you don't have 8 feet. I think that's it.
No.
Because you know what we do? Because we ride here all the time. Stay to the right, stay to the right.
Yeah,
kind
but
of a gentleman's
FHWA says 8 foot minimum for shared use path. And you can go down, or no, it's actually 8 foot is the absolute bare minimum. That's if you've got a constraint. So this doesn't even fit a Louisville loop standard, doesn't fit any multi-use standard whatsoever.
See, if the streetlights are gone, it'd be better.
It would help.
But there's still obstacles.
Well, and that's only part of the equation is narrowing the lane so we get calmer traffic. So it's not just adding, width here and creating an opportunity for waterfront development. We want to calm traffic too. There's multiple different things we're trying to accomplish with the TAP.
When does it not become a shared use path?
Honestly, this right now does not count as a shared use path. It's 8 foot is the absolute bare minimum only when you have constraints, and they recommend that constraint for only 50 to 100 feet total. So
We move this wall further out, what do we accomplish?
If you've ever ridden your bike on here, the fear that somebody's going to pop out from one of these columns and you run into them is very real. Scooter, bike, jogging, there's a conflict in pedestrians. So as soon as you can open, if these columns weren't here, I could see that argument maybe being a little bit more persuasive, but right now everything's so pinched, there's so many areas that it's kind of a dangerous condition.
So again, what's going to keep the pedestrians and the bikes from getting run over by a car?
There's more visibility, there's more room for all of that traffic to occur instead of condensing it.
Because right now, they're not. They're protected.
You're still going to have a barrier, it's just going to be moved out.
Yeah, we're still going to have a barrier.
No, that was one option. Another option was to have the barrier over here and it wide open from here.
Yeah, and I think that option of moving the barrier back here has been eliminated just because if someone is trying to navigate a wheelchair path on the the riverside, there's not enough width to have a barrier there, and then it's wide open. So I probably would feel less safe adjacent to the road without a barrier. The barrier over here is likely not going to happen on the riverside, but it's one of the options we were asked to consider as part of the TAP application.
The option of having the left and the through left. For that option, you would have to reconfigure some of 6th Street. And kind of after talking to stakeholders, the public, and traffic at Louisville Metro, it was decided that's really not our best option. We would rather not have to mess with stuff on 6th Street and have a through lane still. That's a complete through lane, not a through left on River Road. And so that's just one left now that we're using, but that's where the double cycle link comes into play. Right. The majority of the time, westbound is getting the time, and then you back up a little bit on northbound 6, you back up a little bit eastbound River Road, but not enough that you're getting back to another intersection anywhere. So.
Andrea, do you need to go? Do you want to do an overview with everyone real quick?
I can.
You should.
Okay.
Hey everybody, we're going to do a quick overview on 6th Street, talking about the new signal that we're proposing here, as well as some of our options.
So we're proposing a new signal here. We started by looking at an option that basically you have a left and then you have a through left, which would require a split phase. You would have to reconfigure some of 6th Street. After talking with stakeholders, the public, and Metro traffic, we looked into doing basically a double cycle link signal here instead, where we would have just one left turn lane, one through lane. The double cycle link, that westbound movement would be getting almost all of that time. So the 5 cars in the peak hour AM that are headed north on 6th Street, they might have to wait a little bit longer. And the few cars that are coming eastbound might also have to wait a little bit longer. Those queues don't back up to anything crazy. They all flush out within one cycle. But it keeps everything moving. We don't back up to the ramp. None of those problems. So after talking with stakeholders, Metro, public, that's the direction that we'll probably be heading with that.
And you can see on sheet R7 kind of what the layout looks like with the striping. So you can see this is showing the option with the double cycle length. So a through lane, and then the dedicated left turn lane remains at 6th Street. And it does not require any reconfiguration of 6th Street, just improving some of those pedestrian connections. I'm friendly. I'm friendly. All right. So this location right here, this is where we're at 1 lane. Okay? So you'll have your shoulder space, which is 6 feet, and 11-foot lane. And all of the barrier multi-use path is behind that. So you can see here is where you get the real widening at the column, but we're also helping this area right here that you can see behind me with the pedestrian crossing, overhead crossing, full view, the barrier and those columns. And by introducing our taper where we do, we still prevent backups at 3rd Street, but we start to get some path widening between the column and the new barrier. So that pedestrian crossing, overhead crossing, is here. It's on sheet R11. It's where you see the drainage crossing here. To give you a point of reference, that overhead is where these 4 columns are. Right there. And then the column that we're standing next to right now is right here. I know. I can't. Every time I start yelling, somebody drives over and honks.
Sorry, I have a megaphone too, but I always get made fun of every time I get it out.
This is why we were talking about it down there before we came down here. Does anybody have any questions about this concept?
What's the existing width of the existing lanes?
Sorry?
What's the existing width?
11 feet. So we'll maintain an 11-foot lane and a 6-foot shoulder. So we have 18 feet. Sorry, there's a 1 foot offset from the inside median, and then 11-foot lane and a 6-foot shoulder.
Would there be any way?
That actually worked.
Yeah. Would there be any way to maybe make them a slightly skinnier?
The lane?
The lanes.
Sure.
In effect, slow traffic down because of the lanes are skinnier.
Let's ask KYTC
And
Kevin Bailey.
And then eliminate the curb lane over there. So instead of using columns, then putting some structure in it, like a guardrail.
Move up here. Andrea and Kevin Bailey had a good idea that we're going to throw out. It'll have to be analyzed.
Kevin brought this up just now. Well, no, I'm kidding. We were talking just now about that lane drop and how the state a lot of times likes to see, instead of just like lane drops, trying to have that be a turn off so that our lane ends at an intersection. So we were thinking, like, how can we do that at 4th? Because it would have to be dropped. If we were going to do it at an intersection, this is the last intersection we can do that at. So if you got rid of the turn bay for the lefts here and used your left lane as your lefts, for your lefts, your right lane would be your cruise, and then over a little distance here, moving that lane over.
Yeah.
This hasn't been run through traffic, so I don't know what. We have like 1,200 vehicles coming off the ramp in the right in the AM peak, and about 200 coming through 3rd Street from the east, so westbound through. I mean, your through lane would become the right lane, which is where the majority of vehicles already are coming off the ramp. We'd have to run it through the simulation to see what kind of friction we're getting. For that, I don't know, Pat, idea?
The line of sight there with those columns, I don't see how it's going to work. It's talking about moving the left.
Well, you could still use that space and realign your lanes.
I know, but you still got that conflict there. It's like right in your line of sight for the left turn. See what I'm getting at?
You would end up with a 4, right?
Pat, I think what I would suggest is if you took what is now the fast lane and just make it the right turn lane. So if you just transition this back where the cars are, so just draw that solid line back. Then when you do, coming off the ramp, the free flow comes up and the edge line becomes the skips that are over here. So you're not moving, you're not doing an offset from the lane where it is now. You're just using that and basically losing over here. One thing is that right now with the way that road has the double bend in it, people who come through here at night to have any speed at all, that's kind of a dangerous thing. Now you're taking it and flattening the curve out. You can transition it this way. If you actually watch, if you go down there to the free flow is off the ramp and immediately over one lane. They immediately jump into the middle lane because they're either trying to get to the turn lane or they're going to get in there. If you watch, nobody ever gets in this lane until that starts to queue up. Then they start watching. Red car will go out and he'll end up in that lane. The next car comes out.
Merge happens as soon as they get off the ramp.
They come down the ramp, they float to the left almost automatically, unless there's an opposition traffic, which is very limited based on that number.
Right, so now what we got your merge point then for the through traffic coming through on 3rd? That's your merge point for the through traffic coming in on 3rd?
Yes.
Yeah, on River Road.
Yeah. So basically, yeah, there's the one exception that does, you know, they hate it. But if you did that, basically what I'm saying is by doing that, you lose the lane drop, you bring them down, if you watch, come off the ramp, get in that lane, get in that, and people will start getting over, especially the out-of-towners. They always seem to get in the middle lane for some reason. I'm just thinking instead of having to have a lane drop that's down here that could be in the dark, not dark, I mean, you know, it's better to have it back here. So you just bring them down, cue that up, and now, if this left starts to back up for some reason, if there's a heavy movement and this has to happen, or you've got, you know, maybe you have a lot of cars getting off and this is not in that part of the phase, when they queue up, they're already in that lane anyway. They're queuing up in a lane, the storage is in the lane they're going to be in, and you just have a free lane out here that the free flow can still go past them and go on its way.
Is that going to push us into an IMR?
Not if we don't, as long as the queue does not impact that intersection, then no.
I mean, it's something to look at.
Yeah, that's a good question. The question was, is it going to trigger an IMR, interchange modification report? And the answer is no, unless our queue hits that next light.
That would be potentially a huge benefit.
Yeah.
Added space here in one of those.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can be nice.
Yeah, free space.
I like that. Anybody else have any other questions, concerns?
I talked with David earlier. You want to expand?
Yeah, I talked to David.
Oh, okay.
So we're gonna look at some ways to maybe try and get the catch basins from getting blocked up when the roads are cleared off.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Sediment. So we'll see what we can do to improve that.
Well, and who is it that is in charge of the actual cleanup from the metro side?
Sounds like him. You can talk to him after the meeting. Okay? Is that it? All right, thank you all for coming.